Hello, I'm Pat Halpin, and welcome to Cablevision's Meet the Leaders, a program designed to inform and update you about your community and issues right here on Long Island. With us today is Mayor Harvinda Anand from the village of Laurel Hollow. Mayor, it's good to have you with us.
Good to be here, Pat.
Now, you are one of the first Asian American Indians to be elected to public office on Long Island.
Yes.
And one of the few in the country.
Yes.
Now, I'm pretty familiar with Laurel Hollow. It's not like there's a huge Asian Indian community there.
Right.
Tell me, before we get there, where is Laurel Hollow located? It's on the Gold Coast of Long Island.
Laurel Hollow is on the North Shore.
Yes.
We are just west of Cold Spring Harbor, and this is a waterfront community with its own beach and mooring rights for the residents.
So it is a typical Long Island North Shore community. As I'm, to be frank, it's probably about 95% white.
You're accurate, yeah.
Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you got involved in civics in your community when you first moved in there. Tell us about that, and then how that ultimately led you to becoming the mayor of Laurel Hollow.
Pat, I always believed in giving a part of my time back to the community. In any community I've lived in, I've always believed that one should give a part of their time back to the community. And that's what drove me to get into this and start this as a public service. So that's what got me involved.
But your activities really began kind of at a grassroots level, working with your local homeowners association.
Yes, I was first elected as the president.
Were there any issues that motivated you to get involved, or some things that you felt needed to be addressed that weren't being addressed?
I just believed always that, whichever community that I was a part of, that I should be active in it. I should understand what the issues are that are affecting this community at the very local level and make my contributions. So that's what encouraged me to get involved, and then my neighbors were thrilled to see some of my contributions.
So what were some of the things that you did as the head of the homeowners association ultimately led you to get involved in the village government?
I was able to use our purchasing power in a lot of ways. For example, garbage collection was one of the issues.
Right.
Again, very local, down-to-earth issues.
But it makes a difference to people every other day if that garbage is being picked up or not, or whether it's and how much it costs to have that done.
Absolutely. So every homeowner basically was contracting individually with a carter who was charging one guy one amount and another guy another amount. So I was able to form like a co-op to bring everybody together and negotiate one contract for the entire homeowners association, and thus bring actually enhanced service, because now this guy was not just serving one resident, but
Right.
was serving an entire community, but also in a most cost-effective manner. I did something similar for the oil, which is again a commodity that we all buy.
Yes, it is.
But it is again, it was an issue where everybody was, negotiating individually, and I again brought some of my business skills to it.
And you're a businessman. Your background is what?
I'm a chemical engineer, and I started as a chemical engineer, and then eventually grew more into the corporate management side. I'm now the president of a company called Royce International. This is a multinational company involved in manufacture of industrial chemicals.
So as you were looking at, again, another very practical problem, as we're going to the heating season now, people are very focused on the cost of heating oil. You said if we collectively get together
Right.
and in effect put out a bid, we could probably do much better than individually.
That's what I did.
Oil.
Sure, that's what I did before, and including this year, I was able to negotiate a contract for our homeowners, which I was able to offer to some of the other friends in the neighborhood as well, where we got a great deal on the oil. It's a fixed price with full service contract from a company which is very reputable, and they are known to give us good service. So again, a lot of it was utilizing some of my business skills to bring about some good changes in the community, which got me
Again, improved service in a cost-efficient
Absolutely.
manner. Now, let's start from the beginning. You came to the United States 22 years old after graduating from the university.
Yes.
What made you come to the U.S.?
My father was here prior to my coming. He had come here in 1970 on a business. And he had his own business here in New York City, and I was still going to school and college in India. So when I completed my graduation, I decided to move here.
So that was when you were 22.
Right.
And as a 22-year-old, you decided to also then come here and get an MBA, because in addition to your technical background, you felt you needed more business education.
Yes, and that was something which I pursued a few years after I practiced my chemical engineering first. I started my career at a chemical company which was once used to be a part of Occidental Petroleum and ended up being one of the divisions of Bayer Corporation. This was a plant in Hicksville, New York. Started as a fresh project engineer. And again, that plant also, I had the vision of making the changes. This was a very old site with, they did things a certain way, and that's how things were done. And here I came in as a fresh graduate engineer, looking at things in a completely different way, and was able to brought about a lot of different changes.
Well, we're going to talk about how you manage change, not just in the business world, but also at a community level, because change is always difficult, even when everybody agrees with the goal.
Right.
So let's come back to your personal story. You move into your village up there on the Gold Coast, the village of Laurel Hollow. You become president of your homeowners association, and then the people in the homeowners association and your neighbors must have been encouraging you to get involved in village government, and you became a trustee.
Yes, and what led to that was also I got involved in, I was always involved in the police side of things. I am a member of Nassau County Police Reserves. I also went to the police academy, civilian police academy here in Mineola, and that's something which I always had an interest in. A lot of my friends, including my wife, asks me, what am I doing? I'm an engineer. What is this interest about police?
And what's the answer?
I always believe in doing something completely different from what I do from 9 to 5, which serves as a stress release for me. So what I do as a professional, that's my professional life. And I always like to do, and I encourage people to explore things which are entirely different from what they do. So
think out of the box. So so you had an interest in law enforcement and policing.
Right.
And you had a village police department that you became involved with.
The village police department had just been dissolved at that point, but we actually had a very unfortunate incident when I was the president of the Homeowners Association. There were two very bad incidents which happened within my homeowners, the gated community that I live in. One was a burglary, and another was a confrontational robbery where a homeowner was there and somebody broke into the house. And again, these are multi-million-dollar homes.
Right.
And he was tied up, he was beaten pretty badly, and there was a very bad scene. That sent a lot of fear throughout the community. And literally, I remember a few days after that, of course, the police responded and the detectives were working on it, but people were very concerned. So a few days after that incident, I'm coming back from work, and literally there's a few neighbors who had hired private guards.
Right.
So I'm looking at this, and I said, this is Nassau County, not Mexico City.
Right.
So what are we turning them into? What are we turning this community into? So I reached out to the police department, and I reached out to the mayor, who was the mayor at that point. I hosted a community meeting at our house where basically I was able to bring the police department and the community together and allowed people to express their concerns and the police department to respond to those concerns and be able to make them feel safer. So, and at that point, we set a challenge for the police department. Again, I expressed my confidence. We have a very high-quality police department in Nassau County. I know a lot of times they get criticized for the high pay they get, but I think they deserve every penny of it because of the good work they do for the community.
Yes.
So, and we set a challenge for them to catch these people, and they promised us that they will put every effort possible to do that, which they did, and they delivered on their promise. So a few months later, when they solved the crime, they caught the people who committed those crimes, we invited them back to our community to honor them for the good work they have done.
And typically you only hear the complaints when you're at government, or for that matter police, but never never get the thanks. That was very wise to do.
Right.
Very, very wise to do. So from there, you became a village trustee from that point.
The mayor approached me at that point, and she was very interested in my background, and she saw what I could contribute to the community, and she asked me to come on the board to serve as a trustee. So that's where I began as a trustee.
All right, we have to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your agenda as mayor, now that you're the mayor of your village, and the positive effects of creating a community alliance with neighboring villages. So we'll have more from Mayor Anand. Stay with us as soon as we come back.
Thank you.
The EAC Long Island Parenting Institute enhances outcomes for children by helping parents learn and practice effective parenting skills. Using research-proven curricula and approaches, the Institute teaches, supports, and empowers families from all backgrounds and cultures. For more information, call or visit us at eacinc.org.
Music is a means of expression and inspiration. Is your child playing an instrument? The Orchestra for Talented Youth offers dedicated young musicians an outstanding opportunity to perform at various community venues. For more information, contact Director Ivy Chang at 516-921-8180.
Welcome back to Cablevision's Meet the Leaders. Our guest today is Mayor Harvinda Anand from the village of Laurel Hollow. Mayor, you've just took office in July after being elected in June, and you have said that your administration is going to be about running in a cost-effective way, just as you would a business. What do you mean by that?
Pat, there's no reason that in government the principles which we use in our day-to-day businesses cannot be applied. A government can be efficient. By efficiency, I mean doing things in a cost-effective manner and yet be able to provide the quality of services that our neighbors expect.
Give me an example of some of the opportunities that you see in your village to do exactly that, to improve services, yet do it in a more cost-effective way.
Well, interestingly, last night alone, we had an issue which was on the agenda. We used to have our own street sweeper, which was on its last legs. And one of the proposals was to buy another street sweeper, which on a leased basis, it would run about $35,000 a year, plus some maintenance or whatever, some of the extra costs of maintaining the equipment. But I propose that we should look for outside services. There are companies who do the sweeping services. Many of the neighboring villages actually use outside contractors to use those services. So we had put it out for bid, and we did get a bid back using the specs that we had set.
What were your specs?
We are a very special village, so we wanted to do something really good. And most other villages do about 2 times a year sweeping or 4 times a year.
Yeah, typically in the spring, maybe a couple times in the summer, in the fall, and that's about it.
Right, but we had some other residents, and especially one member on the board who's very passionate about providing good services. So we agreed to do 6 sweepings in a year. And Pat, even with 6 sweepings, the bid that we got is just a little more than $20,000 for the entire year. Now here's the kicker. That $20,000 includes the removal of the sweepings, all the stuff that they sweep from the roads. That's their responsibility for disposal of it. When we were sweeping ourselves, the cost of disposal of these sweepings alone was running us about $20,000.
You know, what's interesting, most people don't realize that, is that you just can't dispose of street sweepings any way you want.
Right.
Because of all of the contaminants and things that are in there, they have to be disposed of properly so you don't end up creating a pollution problem someplace else.
Absolutely.
That's why it's so costly.
Sure, and there are state regulations which govern that.
That's right.
And it is considered a toxic waste, so that's why these costs are there. But again, this company who bid on it is a very large company, and I guess they have the efficiencies because of their size, because of the equipment that they have, and as a result of it, they do perform these same services to the for a number of other municipalities in the area. So this is one example of how we can continue to provide the services, but in a cost-efficient manner.
And in a village like yours, notwithstanding the fact that it's a high-income community with very expensive homes, everybody looks at the bottom line. There's no reason to be squandering money, especially when you can do it better a different way.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's also another element to it. The village, basically, there's a lot of older residents.
Yes.
These are people who, these homes were built by their grandfathers and fathers, and then they raised, you know, they were raised there as kids, and now, you know, their kids have moved on. But they love this village, and they are residents of this village. But as they have grown older, their incomes have decreased.
Yes, that's right. They're living on fixed incomes.
Yeah. And yet the tax burden continues to go higher and higher. And as a result of it, driving these, what I call foundations of the community, foundations and pillars of the village, pretty much forcing them out of these communities. And that's not fair. So, when new families come in or younger families come in, they have kids, they are going to school, maybe they can afford to pay those taxes, and they can justify it by the education that their kids are getting. But I think it's very important to have a community where the older members can continue to afford to live there, and at the same time, the younger people who are moving in there can expect the quality of services that they expect.
What about just the way government conducts its business? I mean, one of the most important responsibilities of a village government is to address issues of zoning and development. Those are your powers,
Right.
as well as providing for the public safety and the roads and things like that.
Right.
But clearly, in every village, they're struggling with the issues of how to deal with development, overdevelopment, knockdowns, changing in character. How are you doing in your village with those issues, and what are some of the things that you're doing to try to make it a little simpler for people?
Well, Pat, we had a public hearing last night on this very issue, and again, to preserve the quality of and the nature of the beautiful village that we have, we had passed a steep slope regulation. This was to restrict people to develop homes or disturb slopes, which completely alters the way the water flows and creates a lot of other problems.
Right.
So that was the intent of the
It's
legislation.
a big problem of North Shore communities all over. People are building on properties
Right.
that nobody ever imagined
That they
you
could
could build on if you didn't have an ordinance restricting that. They
Sure.
just dig out the side of the hill.
Sure. So about 2 years ago, we realized that this was a problem, which was becoming bigger and bigger problem, because most lots which could be easily developed had been developed,
Right.
and whatever was left over were these lots which, you know, just as you said, a few years ago, you could never imagine that you could build on it, and they were very steep slopes. So we enacted a legislation to address this problem about 2 years ago. But one of the things that we did during this was that we gave the authority of slopes to the planning board. Now, which was, at that point, we thought was the right thing to do, because planning board usually does the subdivisions, and they are more aware of the slope issues, and they actually go out into the field and they understand the property and, you know, the landscape and everything else. But it created another problem, Pat. If somebody was building, let's say, a pool or putting a shed on an existing property where the home has already been built, but they were doing this on a slope and it required a variance, then the resident would have to go in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance first.
Right.
And Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the authority to consider the slope. So the Board of Zoning Appeals could not consider that application in its entirety. And after getting that variance, they would have to go to the planning board. Now, planning board to go for the slope if there's a slope issue. And we had about 50% of the cases where the residents were being shuttled back and forth. Now, let's say the planning board does not like the fact that they are putting it on this slope, and they said, well, we don't want you to put it here, we want you to put it here. This resident has to go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
And to get the variance.
To get the variance again.
Right. So what is the answer to that?
So I had proposed a legislation which was passed last night, which basically consolidates some of these things and allows the Board of Zoning Appeals to consider slopes in cases where there's also a variance required. And so, and the planning board still has the jurisdiction on slopes for new subdivisions.
Right.
So not only that it helps the residents, but I think it's more efficient way of doing things because each board now considers an application in its entirety.
Which makes so much sense from a planning standpoint as well as just from an efficiency standpoint. And let's be honest about it, the job of government is to serve people, not to have them spun around in a bureaucracy, even a village as small as yours.
Absolutely. And that was one of my commitments to the residents when I was first elected. And I stated my agenda very clearly. I plan to run a government which is efficient, which is friendly to its residents, and provides a high quality of services.
All right, we have to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to finish our conversation with Mayor Harvinda Anand of the Village of Laurel Hollow, so don't go away.
Want to save money on gas and help the environment? The EPA's smart driving tips could give you more miles per gallon and reduce air pollution. Make sure your tires are properly inflated, accelerate and brake slowly, be aware of your speed, and when buying a new car, choose the most efficient vehicle that meets your needs. If we each adopt just one of these tips, we'd get more miles for our money, and it would be a little easier to smell the flowers. For more info, visit epa.gov/greenvehicles.
Oh my goodness! We have seen some big shots. Get out of here. See you later.
That's a pen.
Wide open and score. Man, that was pretty. And a score.
Maybe that's the best match for the night. Unbelievable.
It's good. It's good. What a catch at the 20.
This guy has got it all.
What a shot. We're going to double overtime. Stay with us right here on Cablevision Sports.
The Lighthouse Mission in Patchogue is expanding their resources on Long Island to enable men, women, and children to have hope for a better tomorrow. For the last 14 years, lives of thousands of people have been restored and transformed. Find out how you can contribute to make a difference in the lives of those in need. Call the Lighthouse Mission at 631-758-7584.
This is Cablevision's Meet the Leaders. Our guest today is the Village of Laurel Hollow Mayor Harvinda Anand. Mayor, you have a small village. You're surrounded by other communities, other villages. How do you go about coordinating services, figuring out how to address problems that have an impact not only on your community but the surrounding communities as well?
Pat, I have reached out to all the neighboring villages, for example, Oyster Bay Cove, Mayor Byrne, Cove Neck, Mayor Zoller, Mill Neck, Mayor Ted Smith, and we have all tried to kind of form a little bit of an alliance to share our experiences on different subjects on how we do things better.
I mean, the issues of zoning and development that we just talked about before are mutual concerns that everybody deals with.
Absolutely, and Mayor Byrne and I had a discussion on that, and we compared our experiences on how you do this and how we can do things better.
Right.
At the same time, these villages share some of the services. For example, we contract with the same fire companies to serve the north side of our village. So we have gotten together and had some joint meetings with these fire departments to understand how we can do things better and to understand how we can control the expenses. So I think, when you are a small village, it's a great idea to reach out and form those alliances.
It's also about sharing best practices, which is something that goes on in the private sector all the time. You're always looking at what the best practice is in your sector of business, both from an internal standpoint, what's going on in academia, what you're hearing about, what your competitors are doing.
Absolutely. And there's no reason why we can't do that in the government.
Is there a willingness on the part of government officials to do that, or do people look at things so parochially, saying, well, that might work in Laurel Hollow, but it won't work here in Oyster Bay Cove for some reason?
That has not been my experience. My experience has been that most other mayors they have the same problems, same issues, and they are very open to discussing these things and trying to understand how we can do things better and how we can serve our communities better.
One of the most interesting things about village governments, and there's always this discussion about whether or not we have too many governments here on Long Island, and they'll cite all the villages in places like Nassau County as an example. But you have a lot of very, very talented, smart people who are passionate about community service, whose services you could never afford to pay for, but who are willing to come forward and volunteer and provide all that expertise to their communities to make them a better place.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a very integral part of running some of these small villages, and it's very unique to Nassau County and Suffolk County that we have so many of these villages, and yet we are able to preserve our communities, we are able to provide the services, and do it in an efficient manner.
But you're also able to tap the talent of the people in your village in a way that is very special.
Absolutely, and I must say that my board of trustees, we have a bunch of very talented, very passionate people who all bring very independent ideas, and we may not always agree, but at least, I love to see the debate because I encourage debate. I think it's very healthy for a community. Same thing on the Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Board. We have two people who chair these, and they're both very bright people. And you see the dedication in them. You see the time commitment that they give to these boards, which is wonderful. And again, they take ownership of the community that they live in, which is beautiful.
And that's what makes your village and so many of the others here on Long Island such special places.
Absolutely.
People really put the interest of the village first, and not just what's going on immediately, but what the implications are for the next generation. Mayor, I really appreciate you coming here. You are an historic person for us here on Long Island, and we're happy to have you on Meet the Leaders. We'll have to have you back again.
Thank you very much, Pat.
I appreciate it. Again, don't forget, you can catch Meet the Leaders on demand. Just go to channel 502 and select Local on Demand and choose Long Island. So thank you for watching Cablevision's Meet the Leaders. I'm Pat Halpin. We'll see you next time.